He rolled up in her gleaming SUV, a stranger riding shotgun, and pointed toward my cabin like she already had the deed in her pocket. I was on my porch, coffee mug warm in my hand, when I caught her voice slicing through the quiet morning air. "This is the property I told you about," she announced, smug and confident. "Perfect for the market." My stomach tightened. My home. Not hers. And I had never once put it up for sale. The man beside her looked uneasy, clutching a clipboard like it was a lifeline. "So, the owner's inside?" he asked cautiously. She smirked, tossing her hair. "Oh, don't worry about him. I run this neighborhood." I set my coffee down and rose slowly, eyes fixed on them as they strutted toward the gate like they already owned the place. My dog growled, sensing the tension, but I held my hand out to calm him. She waved her phone at me, shouting, "Unlock this gate. We've got a showing scheduled." My pulse thundered, but I didn't shout back. Instead, I walked down to the gate, twisted the key, and wound a heavy chain tight around the latch. Then I grabbed the sign I'd painted the night before, hammered it into the fence, and stepped aside so they could see it clearly. "Private property, not for sale." Her face flushed crimson instantly. "You can't do this," she screeched, slamming her palms against the metal. "I've already told buyers it's available. You'll regret this." The man's face drained of color. He backed up a step, voice low and uneasy. "Are you even sure this is your listing? Because none of this seems right." She ignored him, glaring at me with that fake sense of authority dripping from every word. "I'm on the HOA board," she hissed. "If I say this cabin is on the market, then it's on the market." I leaned closer to the gate, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Then get ready to find out how wrong you are." Her eyes widened when I pulled my phone from my pocket and hit record, pointing the camera straight at her flushed, angry face. "This woman," I said loud enough for the man to hear, "is trying to sell my home without my consent." The realtor blinked, stunned. "Wait, you're the owner?" he asked, stepping forward. "Of course I'm the owner," I said, pulling out the deed I'd grabbed from inside earlier. It was still sealed in its plastic sleeve. His jaw tightened as he turned toward her, disbelief written all over his face. You told me you had authorization. You signed paperwork saying this was your listing." Karen's voice cracked as she stammered. "Well, it is. I mean, it will be. He doesn't even belong here. This land is under HOA jurisdiction." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "This place was built long before your little HOA ever existed. Your paperwork means nothing here." The realtor's face turned pale as realization sank in. This could cost me my license," he muttered, before turning and hurrying back to his car. That should have been the end of it. But Karen wasn't finished. She yanked out her phone, stabbing the screen with her finger as she dialed. "You'll see," she snapped. "I do have authority. The police will be here any minute." I clenched my fists but stayed calm. She didn't know that the last time someone tried this, the responding officer was an old army buddy of mine, and his number was still on speed dial. It didn't take long. 15 minutes later, 2 patrol cars rumbled up the gravel drive, their lights flashing red and blue against the pines. Karen straightened up like royalty greeting her guards. "Officers, over here," she bellowed, jabbing her finger toward me as though I was some criminal behind bars. "This man is trespassing on HOA property and refusing to leave. Arrest him immediately." The officers exchanged a look, then glanced toward my porch. One of them arched a brow. "Trespassing," he said flatly. "He's standing on the porch of that house." Karen's voice rose, shrill and desperate. "Yes, but he's not supposed to be here. I've already listed this property with my realtor." "She's lying about owning this place," she screeched, shoving her phone toward the officers. On the screen were obviously doctored documents, cheap forgeries she'd slapped together to make herself look legitimate. I leaned casually against the fence, cool as ice, and unzipped a folder I'd brought out earlier. "Funny thing, officers," I said evenly, handing them my paperwork. "I've owned this property for 15 years. Paid in full, no mortgage, no HOA contracts, nothing tying me to their nonsense." The taller officer flipped through my deed carefully, his eyes scanning every line. When he looked back up, His gaze was sharp and direct, aimed at her. These are official records from the county clerk's office, he said firmly. They clearly show that this cabin is his. Do you have any legitimate paperwork proving otherwise? Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She stammered, arms flailing wildly. He must have forged those papers. He's lying. The second officer snorted under his breath. Did you just accuse the county clerk's office of fraud? That's a new one. Her face turned bright red, but instead of backing down, she doubled down with a shaky voice. Fine. If you won't arrest him, then I'll press charges for harassment. He threatened me. Without saying a word, I raised my phone, still recording, and tapped play. Her own voice rang out crystal clear. If I say this cabin is for sale, it's for sale. The officers froze mid-step, eyes locking on her. One arched an eyebrow and smirked. You want to rethink that statement? The confidence drained from her in seconds. She lunged to grab her phone, but one officer held up his hand like a stop sign. Stay where you are. We're going to need to see some identification. She hesitated, muttering curses under her breath, but eventually fished her wallet out and handed it over. The taller officer radioed in her information while the other kept his gaze on me, expression sharp, as if he suspected there was more to the story. The radio crackled a moment later. Subject has multiple prior complaints for fraud and harassment in neighboring counties. The officer's jaw tightened as he turned toward her. So this isn't your first stunt. Her face went pale. Those complaints are lies. People just misunderstood me. I was only trying to help the neighborhood. I crossed my arms, my expression hard, by trying to sell homes you don't even own. That's when her mask slipped completely. She snapped, her voice sharp and bitter. No one takes care of this place like I do. You don't even desire that cabin. You barely live here. I'm the one keeping property values high. People trust me. The officer cut her off, his tone clipped. Impersonating a property owner, filing fraudulent listings, and attempting to sell real estate you have no legal claim to, those are felonies. You're not going anywhere. Desperation clawed at her voice as she spun toward the patrol car. No, you don't get it. I have connections. The HOA will back me up. They promised. That's when I pulled out a second phone from my pocket. I'd anticipated this move and had set up a hidden camera at the gate earlier. With one tap, the video played, crystal clear audio of her voice from earlier that morning. This is the property I told you about. Perfect for the market. The officer's eyes went wide. He didn't hesitate. Turn around. Hands behind your back. And just like that, Karen fell silent. The metallic click of the cuffs echoed sharply through the quiet woods. But even as they secured her, I knew this wasn't quite over. She twisted in the officer's grip, shouting over her shoulder, "You can't do this. The HOA board will clear my name. They know I was only protecting property values." The taller officer shook his head, his tone cold. The only thing you're protecting is your ego. They guided her toward the squad car, but I noticed the realtor hadn't left. He stood rigid by his vehicle, pale and trembling like his entire career had just gone up in flames. Before the officers could leave, another SUV rolled up the gravel driveway. Out stepped two men and a woman, all dressed in sharp business attire, clearly the HOA board. Their expressions were tight, irritated, like they'd been dragged here unwillingly. Karen spotted them and immediately started shouting, her voice raw. Tell these officers I had every right. We were selling this dump for the good of the neighborhood." But instead of coming to her defense, the board members froze when they noticed my camera still rolling. The woman muttered under her breath, "She actually did it." The shorter man rubbed his forehead and whispered, "We told her not to take it this far." The officer caught the exchange. His eyes narrowed. "So, you were aware of this scheme?" None of them met my gaze. I stepped forward, raising my phone so they could all see the glowing red record button. "Don't bother lying. Every word, every promise, every scam. It's all on tape now." The woman's tone turned icy as she snapped at me. "You can't release that footage. It'll destroy the HOA's reputation." I smiled, sharp and deliberate. "That's exactly the idea." From the back of the patrol car, Karen erupted, screaming through the open window. "You cowards! You promised to back me up. You said we'd split the money." The words tumbled out before she realized what she'd admitted, in front of the cops, the HOA board, and my still recording phone. The taller officer almost looked satisfied as he shut the cruiser door on her raging voice, her protest muffled by the glass as they prepared to drive away.